Hi, and thank you for visiting my channel. For more information, kindly subscribe and follow. Now let's get started. Current Intercontinental Champion Jey Uso has sent out a message after WWE's recent live event in Cardiff. This was Jey's first social media activity since a reunion with his brother Jimmy Uso and Roman Reigns was teased on SmackDown. After several months of failed attempts at capturing singles gold, Jey Uso finally won the IC title last month by defeating Braun Breaker on Raw. While fans have been enjoying his run on the Monday Night Show, there's also been chatter of him potentially reuniting with Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso to take on the Bloodline. Several hints about it were also dropped on last week's episode of SmackDown, where Jimmy reiterated he and Reigns needed help. Jey Uso, meanwhile, recently competed at WWE's live event in Cardiff, where he retained his Intercontinental Championship against Braun Breaker. He has now taken to his Instagram stories to share a picture from the event and praised the Cardiff fans. Matt Camp can see Jey Uso reuniting with Roman Reigns before Survivor Series 2024 on a recent edition of the Wrestling Mat podcast. Matt Camp stated that Jey and Reigns could finally align before Survivor Series 2024. The former WWE personality feels the original Tribal Chief could convince the Yeet Man to join him and Jimmy in going to war with the Bloodline by acknowledging him as his equal. I think that is going to be a story that takes us into Survivor Series at the end of next month. We have 6-7 weeks to build that story. And that's gonna have to be Roman Reigns acknowledging Jey Uso. Jey talking down to Roman, "Us, I left you. Look what I got now. I'm the Intercontinental Champion. These people love me. I've never had a better time in my life. Why would I ever want to come back to this?" And he's 100% right in saying that, and that's where Roman, now being more the babyface, not has to beg, but he has to show respect and acknowledge and put Jey on the same level as him, he said. Survivor Series 2024 is expected to feature a War Games match pitting the solo Sikoa-led Bloodline against the OG version of the stable headed by Roman Reigns. With the recent return of The Rock, things have gotten even more interesting as there's a chance he could align with Sikoa and his cohorts. Solo Sikoa sends personal message to Roman Reigns amid Jey Uso speculation. Solo Sikoa delivered a personal message to Roman Reigns following this past Friday's edition of WWE SmackDown. Jimmy Uso squared off against the new Tribal Chief in the main event of the show. Sikoa defeated Uso in the singles bout, and then the Bloodline attacked him after the match. Roman Reigns attempted to make the save, but the faction beat him down. Earlier in the night, Jimmy Uso suggested that he and Reigns bring Jey Uso back to the group, but the original Tribal Chief responded by saying, "No yeet." Following Sikoa's victory over Uso, the 31-year-old claimed that he was better than everyone on the roster. "Can't nobody touch us. Can't nobody stop us. There ain't a man that can touch me. The Tribal Chief is head and shoulders above all," said Sikoa. Jimmy Uso spent several months on hiatus from the company after he was kicked out of the Bloodline following his loss to Jey Uso at WrestleMania XL. The veteran returned at Bad Blood last weekend to help Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes defeat the Bloodline Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu. Jey Uso departed the Bloodline after he was betrayed by Jimmy Uso at SummerSlam 2023. Main Event: Jey is the reigning Intercontinental Champion on WWE Raw. WWE legend claims Roman Reigns is the perfect opponent for the new version of the Bloodline. Wrestling icon Jerry the King Lawler recently discussed Roman Reigns' rivalry with the Bloodline on WWE SmackDown. The Bloodline made a ton of changes during Reigns' hiatus from the company. Jimmy Uso and Paul Heyman were kicked out of the group, while Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, and Jacob Fatu were recruited as new members. In an exclusive interview with Sportskeeda Wrestling's Bill Apter, Lawler stated that the head of the table is the perfect babyface to go up against the faction. "Well, I think he's gonna be perfect. I think he'll be the perfect babyface against those guys. When you say, 'Oh, it's worked out perfect,' well, it's worked out perfect in wrestling. It's done it so many times. I know I've been in that same situation where you be a hot heel and then another heel comes along and they want to see the old guy get rid of the young guy, and that's what has happened here. It's just classical wrestling stuff happening again. 1011 to 1057, Jey Uso has become a very popular single star on WWE Raw. It will be interesting to see if the 39-year-old decides to help Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso in the weeks ahead. As the tensions within the bloodline continue to escalate, the wrestling world remains on edge, eagerly watching how the next chapter will unfold. Solo Sikoa, once a silent enforcer of Roman Reigns, has been the subject of much speculation as Jey Uso's departure leaves a massive gap in the family dynamic. The WWE Universe is wondering whether Solo will remain loyal to Roman or forge his own path amid rumors swirling around Jey's next move. The Usos split from the bloodline shattered the once united faction, shaking the foundation that Roman Reigns had carefully constructed. For years, Roman ruled as the tribal chief, with his cousins by his side. But the last few months have seen a massive unraveling, particularly after Jey Uso delivered a painful betrayal to his family by quitting WWE after SummerSlam. Now, Solo Sikoa stands at a crossroads. Will he remain by Roman's side, or will he too forge his own destiny? Behind the scenes, Solo has maintained a stoic silence, but it's clear that the youngest member of the Anoa'i family is harboring intense emotions. And recently, it appears he has broken that silence, sending a deeply personal message to Roman Reigns that has sent shockwaves through WWE. The message that shook the family. The message came out of nowhere. Fans and insiders alike were caught off guard when Solo Sikoa posted a cryptic video to his social media accounts. In the dimly lit video, Solo sat in a quiet, empty locker room, his face partially obscured by shadow, but his signature intensity visible. He was dressed in black, his ominous stare fixed on the camera, his trademark taped thumb resting on his knee. There was no noise but the subtle hum of air conditioning in the background as Solo began to speak. "Roman," he said, his voice deep and measured. "For years, I followed the path you laid out for us. We listened, we did what was asked, and we stood by your side. You told us we were family, and family comes first. But lately, I've been thinking. What does family really mean to you?" There was a pause as Solo's eyes narrowed, his brow furrowed in contemplation. The weight of his words hung in the air. "You promised unity, but all I've seen is division. Jay's gone. Jimmy's out. And now, you're not even here." It was a direct hit to Roman, who had taken a brief hiatus from WWE to deal with some personal matters. The tribal chief's absence left Solo to pick up the pieces of a fractured faction, and it was clear that Solo was growing tired of being left in the dark. "I stayed quiet because I believed in the mission," Solo continued. "I believed in you. But now, I'm starting to wonder if you ever really believed in me. I've been your enforcer, but what have you done for me? You say you're the tribal chief, but a leader doesn't just disappear when things get tough. A real leader stays and fights with his people." Solo's voice grew more intense with each passing second. The rage simmering beneath his calm exterior was starting to boil over. It was a rare glimpse into the emotions of a man who had spent most of his WWE career as a silent, destructive force. "I've watched Jay walk away. I've seen the toll this has taken on our family. And you? You haven't even reached out. Not to me. Not to anyone. You're too busy playing king to remember what it's like to be one of us." The words struck deep. It was clear that Solo felt abandoned, not just by Roman, but by the idea of the bloodline itself. The faction that had once been synonymous with power and loyalty was now splintering, and Solo was left to grapple with what that meant for his own future. Jey Uso's shadow looms large as Solo's message made waves online. The speculation about Jey Uso's potential return intensified. Jay's exit from WWE had been abrupt, leaving fans wondering if his departure was final or if he would eventually find his way back to the ring. Could Solo's message be a catalyst for Jay's return? Solo's tone suggested that he was no longer willing to be a mere pawn in Roman's game. The personal nature of his message implied that he was ready to take matters into his own hands, even if that meant standing against his older cousin. With Jey gone, there's a growing belief that Solo might feel the pressure to fill the void, not just as Roman's enforcer, but as someone with his own ambitions. Many within the WWE universe are now speculating that Solo might reach out to Jey in an attempt to reunite their brotherhood away from the control of Roman Reigns. If this happens, it could mark the beginning of a new faction, one that opposes Roman and the bloodline, but instead represents the true values of family loyalty. The future of the bloodline. While Solo's message has left many questions unanswered, one thing is clear: the bloodline is not the same. The cracks in Roman's empire are deepening, and Solo Sikoa is no longer content to remain silent. His message not only put Roman on notice, but also opened the door for a potential power struggle within the family. If Solo chooses to walk away from Roman, the bloodline could be finished for good. Roman's reign as tribal chief has been marked by his ability to manipulate and control those around him, but with Solo potentially turning against him, the cracks in Roman's armor are more visible than ever. As Jey's future continues to loom large over WWE, all eyes are now on Solo. Will he remain loyal to Roman, or will he follow in his brother's footsteps and carve out his own path? The tension is palpable, and the WWE Universe is eager to see what Solo Sikoa will do next. One thing is certain: the Bloodline's days as an unstoppable force are numbered. Solo's message has set the stage for a new chapter, and the fallout from his bold words could change the trajectory of WWE forever. Roman Reigns, wherever he is, has received the message loud and clear. Now, the world waits for his response. The atmosphere backstage at SmackDown was thick with tension. The buzz surrounding the potential reunion of the Bloodline had reached a fever pitch. For weeks, rumors had circulated, fueled by cryptic social media posts and subtle hints dropped during promos. Fans speculated about the possibility of Jey Uso reuniting with his brother, Jimmy, and their cousin, Roman Reigns. Would the powerful faction be restored, or had the schisms run too deep? Jey stood alone in the dimly lit hallway, leaning against the wall, his thoughts racing. It felt like a lifetime since he had last aligned himself with Roman. Their bond had been strong, forged through years of shared struggles and triumphs in the ring. But betrayal had left scars that were hard to ignore. When he had chosen to step away from the Bloodline, it had been for his own sake, to find his identity apart from the family legacy. The cost of that decision weighed heavily on him. Suddenly, his phone buzzed in his pocket, jolting him from his reverie. It was a notification from Twitter. Intrigued, he pulled out his phone and opened the app. The moment he did, his heart sank. There it was, a picture of Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso together, standing side by side, a camaraderie visible in their smiles. The caption read, "Bloodline 2.0? Could it be happening?" Below the image, fans were already speculating about a reunion. Jey felt a mix of emotions: nostalgia, resentment, and an undeniable urge to respond. He knew he couldn't ignore it. Jey had always been a man of few words, believing that action spoke louder than anything he could say. But in this moment, he realized he needed to say something. With a deep breath, he began to type. His fingers moved quickly, fueled by a surge of emotions that had been building inside him. The message felt significant, even if it was brief. He had no intention of fully revealing his thoughts, he just needed to make a statement. After a moment of contemplation, he pressed send, watching as the notification buzzed into the digital ether. The simplicity of the message belied its weight. Jey knew that this could spark more speculation and conversation, but it was the truth that resonated within him. Family was at the core of who they were, but it had been overshadowed by conflicts and misunderstandings. He hoped that this would reach his brother and cousin, that they would understand his feelings and realize the door was not entirely closed. As he put his phone back in his pocket, the atmosphere around him shifted. He could hear the faint sound of the crowd chanting outside the arena, the excitement for the night's matches reaching a crescendo. Jey knew he needed to focus. His match was coming up soon, and he had to bring his A game. The arena lights dimmed as the show began, and Jay's entrance music hit. The roar of the crowd echoed through his body, igniting a fire within him. As he made his way to the ring, he felt the energy shift. There was something different in the air, a palpable sense of possibility. Perhaps the whispers of a reunion were more than just rumors. The match was intense, and Jay found himself wrestling with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in a long time. He executed every move with precision, showcasing his skills and proving that he was still a top contender in the ring. With each strike, he felt more connected to his roots, to the legacy of his family. The match culminated in a stunning victory that sent the crowd into a frenzy. As he stood in the center of the ring, arms raised in triumph, he glanced toward the entrance ramp, half expecting to see Roman or Jimmy making their way to congratulate him. But the moment passed, and he was left alone in the spotlight. The lingering thoughts of family weighed heavily on him, reminding him of the unity they once shared. Backstage, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement as the next match was set to begin. Jay was approached by various wrestlers and staff, congratulating him on his performance. But his mind was elsewhere. He felt a deep longing for connection, and the thought of his family was never far from his mind. Later that evening, as he scrolled through social media, he saw that his three-word message had gained traction. Fans were talking, speculating on what it meant for the future of the bloodline. Jay felt a sense of pride. He had opened a dialogue, igniting conversations that needed to happen. Just then, a new notification popped up on his screen. It was a response from Jimmy. Jay's heart raced as he clicked on it. The simplicity of the response sent a rush of emotions through Jay. It was a sign that there was still hope, that the bond they shared hadn't been completely severed. Jay quickly typed back, letting the words flow without hesitation. Minutes passed before Jimmy replied. Jay felt a wave of anticipation wash over him. This was it. This was the moment he had been waiting for. The possibility of reconciling with his brother and cousin felt tangible, like a breath of fresh air after a long, suffocating silence. After the show, Jay made his way to the designated meeting spot, a small lounge area backstage where they could talk privately. The air crackled with anticipation as he paced back and forth, replaying memories in his mind, their victories, their struggles, and the moments that had forged their unbreakable bond. When Jimmy arrived, the tension was palpable. They stood there for a moment, studying each other, both aware of the weight of unspoken words. Jimmy began, his voice steady but soft. I saw your message. It got me thinking. Yeah? Jay replied, trying to keep his emotions in check. Family is everything, bro. We've been through too much to let misunderstandings tear us apart, Jimmy said, his eyes earnest. Jay nodded, feeling the walls he had built around his heart begin to crumble. I miss us, man. I miss being part of the bloodline. But I needed to find myself first. I get it. We all did. But we can find ourselves together, Jimmy replied, a smile breaking through. As they talked, the weight of the past began to lift. They shared their thoughts, their regrets, and their hopes for the future. The conversation flowed easily, as if no time had passed since their last connection. With every shared laugh and reminiscence, they reaffirmed the bond that had always existed, despite the distance. Finally, they made a pact. Let's reach out to Roman, Jay suggested, a glimmer of excitement in his voice. Jimmy grinned, nodding in agreement. Together again, right? In that moment, the future felt bright. The possibility of a reunion became more than just a rumor, it was a decision they were willing to make together. Jay felt a sense of belonging returning, like the missing piece of a puzzle finally clicking into place. As they walked out of the lounge, ready to face whatever came next, Jay couldn't shake the feeling that their family, once fractured, was on the verge of becoming whole again. All it took was 3 words to start the conversation: *family is everything. *.